Hey, Dee, Max Phillips just pulled up.
Oh, good. Well, he needs no introduction, Max Phillips. Let me go get the door. It's going to be great.
Yeah, man.
All you have done is been in the real estate business, haven't you? I mean, you don't, other than golf, there's nothing else.
Funny story, I tell this all the time, Dee. I did a little stint with Butler's shoe store, and they wanted me to move, and I said no. And then I sold life insurance, and that taught me how to do a presentation. But my mother, I was one when my mother started the real estate industry, so I've not done anything but known the real estate industry growing up, and it started in 26, and I haven't turned back. Now I'm 69 years old and 46 years in the business.
You're how old?
I'm 69.
So how old was now your mother? What was her name?
Sammy Jean
Phillips.
Phillips.
Whenever you read a story in the newspaper or see something on television about somebody getting arrested, you naturally assume they're guilty. Unless the story's about you or someone you love, then you'll think differently. And you'll want a lawyer who will defend you. My name's Scott Canavis. If you or someone you love has been charged with a crime, call me. I'll return your phone calls, I'll work on your case, and I will defend you.
My grandfather worked for her. Jim Burris, Elijah Burris.
Yeah. And also who the secretary there at Phillips when I went there, before I got there, was Jim Williams' wife. She was the secretary there for Phillips Real Estate on Inman Street. You know, that little building on Inman Street, still there.
Now, didn't John Paul start selling for her?
I think so. You know, funny thing about John Paul, he did so well and everything else, and he started a real estate company, him and Bruce Renner,
Yeah.
and then all of a sudden John Paul wouldn't show houses anymore. You know why?
Why?
Because he showed houses one time, and he was showing a house, and he got beat up, and the people stole his money. He said, "I'll never show another house." And he died, ended up with some 600 and something rentals and everything else. So he did it different in another way, but did quite well.
He did well. Right there's his picture.
Yeah, he was a funny man.
He was a good guy.
He's a good man. You know, that's where I met you.
That's right, with him.
With him and Bruce and everything else, and y'all run around. And
Bruce was my second cousin.
is that right?
Yeah.
I didn't know that.
Yeah. And Bruce or John Paul was with Jim Hicks. They were.
Yeah, I remember Jim. What a hairdo he had.
It was this
Yeah, I
tall,
know.
wasn't it?
Yeah,
You know,
it
he's
was.
still alive.
Is he really?
Oh, yeah.
I was wondering that.
I had him here on my show.
Is that right?
Yeah, I think his memory's getting a little bit off, but who's it? I guess. Right?
I have to say that's true.
So Imogene Phillips. Now Billy A. Phillips.
Yeah, that's my brother right here.
Which is right here.
Yeah.
So did he sell for Imogene Phillips?
Sammy Jean.
Sammy Jean Phillips there too?
Bill came along, and then Mother hired him, and then brought him into the business and split it with him. And Bill ran the company after she started. You know, this was back in the day where you made money. You'll love this. She started when she was 36 years old after she had raised 4 kids. She hadn't raised me yet. I was one, you know, but but she started at 36 and she retired at 56 and had a gazillion dollars. And this is how she did it. My dad and her would build 2 35 houses like in Northwood and all around, they'd go and they'd have an auction for all these lots, and they'd buy 5 or 10, and then they'd build these houses. And that's when Austin Stevenson, Bob Kaler, you know, all the old guys.
Joe Wanby.
Yeah, Joe.
He would build.
He built them.
I
But
worked for him.
They would build one. They would build 4 235 houses, selling for $22,500, and the 4th one was solid profit. This is in the '60s, when $22,500 was probably $1 million. You know, I mean, not really.
A lot of those houses up on Northley Highway were in that.
Yes.
What's the name?
Rolling Brook.
Rolling Brook.
And then South Meade, North Meade.
Now later they came along with a different program.
It was a they called it a 465 program.
And that's when I was working
Yeah,
for
that's
my
when
uncle.
that's when you were doing.
Yeah.
I was
and they would give the buyer his down payment.
and
Remember that?
And subsidize his payment.
Subsidize his payment.
Yeah.
You know, me and John Paul bought a house one time
Yeah.
at a foreclosure, and I went to get a title on it, and they said, "Wait a minute, that's got a recapture on it."
Yes, it did.
Of like $17,000.
10 years. They gave it to you free for 10 years, as long as you lived there 10 years. If you didn't, the first 5, you had to recapture all of it, and then after 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, it reduced up into 10 years to 0.
Well, when I bought it, it had not reduced all the way out, and
Yeah.
I remember having to tell John Paul that we owed $17,000 more than I bought that for.
Right.
He didn't get mad.
Yeah, it's just
He
part
said,
of it.
and,
yeah.
you know, I've still got that house.
Is that right?
I've still
Well,
got
good
it.
for you.
I had to. I couldn't get out.
I can understand that.
Well, that was a different time in the. That was when I guess. Now we're going back to some old names here,
Yeah.
but what's the appraiser's name? Robbie
Ray.
Jimmy Ray.
Jimmy Ray.
He was appraiser. You know, he had He worked for Miller Real Estate.
Bill Miller.
Bill Miller Real Estate.
That's right. He did. And then Bill ended up Bill gave him everything he had.
Including his house and his office.
And his office and everything else. Then Robbie took it over, and now Robbie's retired.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, he is.
Didn't Jimmy Ray used to go to the mill? He left the furniture. My understanding is he left the furniture just the way Bill Miller had it, and him and his wife, Repsy. Was it
Right.
Repsy?
I don't know.
I think
I don't
they
know
would
that.
go there instead of going on vacation. That they went to that house and stayed like for the weekend.
Is that right?
Yeah.
I didn't know that. I didn't know Bill very well. I knew Jimmy real well, and he was a character.
He was a character.
Yeah.
He was a real good guy.
Yeah, he was.
He was super.
Yeah.
guy.
Robbie's the same way.
Same way.
Yeah.
Same
Good guy.
temperament.
Yeah, just good man.
Now, there was also another guy there. I guess there's been so many real estate agents. It's just been bizarre. But didn't that guy that ended up working at Hardee's, didn't he work as a real estate agent? I can't think of his name. He worked at he ended up going to work for Hardee's. I know, you'd know who I was talking about if I said his name.
I know names are tough. But then you had, of course, you had Larry Everhart, big appraiser.
Larry Everhart.
Yeah, good man, good friend of mine.
He
taught me more about cap rate and commercial property. I'd go to him, I'd say, now teach me how to do this. And I've still got the file over in my office on how to calculate all that.
Was he older than Max?
No, Max was older. I think Max was the oldest.
Maybe a couple years.
Yeah,
he died like 2 years.
Yeah, he got cancer and then it went quick. It went quick. All of a sudden his shoulder started hurting.
Yeah.
And he was fine. And then they did an MRI, so to speak, back then. And then he had cancer and he died pretty quick.
I worked for him a lot. He would stand by you, buddy.
Yeah.
I mean,
Max was the banker and everything else. Married into the Neal family and put the whole wall. That's why we've got a Walmart here, is cause of Max.
And a Panera Bread.
And a Panera Bread and everything. Yeah.
I wish I could think of that guy's name that I was trying to think of. But so you went to work there at about what year would that have been?
And when I went to got in the real estate business in 1979. And the interest rate, I'll tell you a funny story too.
Now,
Interest rates were 9.25% when I got in the real estate business. And then I got in it, and I didn't know if I'd chose the right profession or not, because interest rates started going up, and that was the Jimmy Carter years, and they went all the way up. Do you remember when you'd go down to Cleveland Bank and Trust, the corner there, Mouse Creek, when they had that branch there? I remember going in there, and you could get a CD for 23.5%. Boy, wouldn't you like to have that interest rate for savings now?
See, I was with my uncle then. We would go to Cleveland Plywood.
Yeah.
And Cleveland Plywood, that was when Austin was there.
Yeah.
Bob Kaler.
Right.
Ed Allen. Sam Humbard.
Sam Humbard did a lot of building for us in the time.
Well, I remember Bob Kaler.
Right.
He is developing a subdivision with somebody at the time. I was just a kid.
Right.
I didn't know what they was talking about. But somebody said, is the economy bad? And he said, the economy's not bad till you wake up and pass yourself in the hall at 4 a.m, trying to figure out what to do. So it was bad, wasn't it?
It was, they think, 2008 was bad.
Bad.
We almost lost our country over that, because you started in the 90s, at the very first of the 90s, they started giving the money away if you worked at Hardee's or whatever on the line there. They would do your stated income, and they'd say, well, I make $100,000, which is not true, and that's how they got loans, and it came up and bit us.
And they loaned 105%.
Yeah, but then now, but when I started, it got bad, and it stayed bad for 4 years. There wasn't anything going on.
Now, what was it? They said that money was easy to get. You just had to pay like 18%.
16.75% interest. And it got up higher than that. I sold homes at 6, and then I was the one, myself and David Fair, we did the first adjustable rate mortgage in Cleveland, Tennessee. And it was 16, 17%, 30-year conventional. And we did it for 12.75, and the guy from TVA thought he had hit the home run. And there was no caps or anything before it was over, and that thing started readjusting the loan. He was paying 4.25. But now they don't even do hard adjustable rate mortgage anymore.
Now they would do a lot of they do the wraparound mortgage.
Oh yeah.
Remember the wraparound mortgage?
Now they're doing a lot of that now. You know why? Because in 2008 you had that collapse,
right,
and then you got 2 and 2.5 and 3%. So they're just doing. I was talking to a banker the other day, and they said we're just doing a home equity loan and wrapping it around that and everything else, so the people on that, so they don't have to refinance or anything.
Well, see, back then you would sell a house, and they would assume the mortgage.
Yes, $45.
$45 to assume the mortgage.
Non-qualifying, just walk in.
Non-qualifying, assumable loan, and that may have been what pulled everything out, because it got things moving a little bit.
Yeah, and
Bill Harris did them all the time.
my mother, Sammy Jean Phillips Sloan, of course she married Preacher Sloan, she was one of the largest secondary mortgage holders in Bradley County, because what they would do is they would do an FHA loan and lend the people the down payment for the FHA loan, and then then all of a sudden, if they didn't want the house anymore, they'd come to her. She'd pay them. She'd take the home back over for the mortgage, and then turn around and sell it for $5,000 down and assume the mortgage. And she had tons of them. Bob Gentry, remember him?
Bob Gentry. Let's see.
Yeah. Mary Lee.
Bob Gentry. Gentry Real Estate.
And then that's Lou Bramer and Sue, and they were Gentrys. And then my mother, when she first started the real estate business, went to work for Gentry Real Estate.
She was probably one of the first female.
Absolutely.
I mean, think about it, especially even owning her own business.
Oh, yeah.
At the time.
At the time. And very successful at it. She had mortgages, she had insurance.
My
she had
grandfather
real estate.
worked for her. Supposedly, Lige Burris, my great-grandfather, took
John
her.
Nyman, remember John?
Oh, yeah, do I?
Yeah.
That's so, he ended up doing bookkeeping work for John Paul.
Yeah.
And his son has that awning shop.
Is that right? I didn't know that.
Yeah. His son has the awning shop.
Yeah, but John, I worked with John, and then right when I first started at Phillips, as a salesman, John was there. And go ahead.
Who was the old appraiser? He was an appraiser, but had a real estate license. But at one time, he had a car dealership. What was his name?
Lord have mercy.
And his son owns that plaza on Grove Avenue.
Brewer?
Nope.
Grove Avenue. On Grove. I don't know.
I want to say his name's Ted. It'll come to me in a minute. I do this all the time.
Yeah.
He owned a car dealership on 64 Highway. And then he would do appraisals on the side, and then he got in the real estate business. I know you know him.
Oh, I sure do. I just, after 46 years, you just forget, on what's all going on.
But, now, if I remember when I was working for my uncle during that period, those guys would build 20 houses a year. Mm-hmm. And all of a sudden, it stopped.
It stopped.
And if you notice in this business, it's not subtle changes. It's just the iron. My uncle used to say the iron door shuts.
Quick.
It just
2008, everything was rocking and rolling, and then all of a sudden, it just stopped.
I'll tell you the day, and anybody that was in it can just about pinpoint the day it hit them.
Yeah.
Mine was October 17th, 2008.
Mine, the business was, when I first started, Dee, that was worse than 2008.
Now,
and you probably don't remember that.
In 79?
In 79.
I remember me and my uncle, we went from 10 houses, he went from 10 houses a year to we did one addition in Hopewell.
Yeah, well, that's the way. That's how bad it was. But now, I survived 2008 through 2010 and everything else, but did okay because there was some business out there. Especially because Cleveland is a diversified industry base, so these people were moving in and out, no matter if they were in with the real estate industry in trouble all over the nation.
But in 79, you could get money. It was just too much. But in 2009, you couldn't even get it.
No, they wouldn't give you any money.
They'd call you and say, "Hey, we decided we don't want this loan. We decided we had to reappraise it, and you got to bring in $30,000."
That's exactly right. That's what shut all that.
That's what shut it up. And that's what eventually people, that age group that was in that as a young person, they'll remember that for a long time.
But now, Hank Wilson made a fortune during that time.
Hank Wilson.
He closed almost 30 million or maybe even 39 million from repossessions and bought a bunch of them himself.
He's so smart.
Yeah, he did well. I interviewed him when I was in the business. He wanted to buy and sell, and we didn't really allow much of that. But he went on to do, and he's done quite well.
Now, in 79 and 80, that was when Tom Crye was buying everything. Remember that? Wasn't that about 81 or 82? That was towards the end when Reagan
took it over.
Took off the capital gains.
Right.
And that sort of opened the doors for a boom there.
Right.
But in 79, I know who I was thinking about. Ralph Rogers. Remember Ralph Rogers?
Yeah.
Underrated, wasn't he?
Yeah, underrated.
Underrated.
Yeah.
I mean, way underrated.
Yeah.
He was one of the best I knew of. But as far as knowing what was the trends were going to be. I mean, he was good.
Yeah.
But what do you, did it not? Now later, I'm going to say towards 83, 84, it got better, and then it took another slight downturn, and then the 90s hit.
Yeah, well then, see, it took a slight downturn because that's when all the, what do you call those banks, they were...
Oh, S&Ls.
The S&Ls went out of business. They pulled the rug out from under.
Cherokee Valley went under.
And all of them.
And took some with him, everybody with him.
That was a little, it wasn't bad, but it was, you know, we still, every 7 years, you have that little hump.
Yeah.
You know, and that was one of them. And then 90s, and then in 90 started, and it was good all the way through 2008.
And you know what? I think that it was really, I mean, from 1990 to 2006, if a buyer didn't like the wallpaper, you'd say, well, move out of the way, the people behind you will take it.
That's right.
And you could not build enough, develop enough, sell enough. Mm-mm. But I think that maybe the crisis started hitting in 2007, depending on where you were. I just think 2008 is when it hit.
They did the Frank Dodd Act, and that was when it all triggered it.
It started, and whoever was feeling that first was starting. But in 2008, I remember them talking, everybody's talking about how bad in fact, I was with Toby McKenzie.
Is that right?
In 2000.
Rest in peace, Toby.
Yeah, in 2000, towards the beginning of 2008. And he said,
It got him.
Yeah, he said, you know, this economy's getting bad. And I said, no, I hadn't seen a sign. I'm like you, not a bit, man. He said, well, it's bad and it's getting worse. And before it's over, everybody will know what I'm talking about. And by George, he was right.
He was right.
Everybody down to the municipalities, to the churches, to the nonprofit order, everybody felt it until about 2013.
Yeah, 2000, it started to come back a little bit to 10, but it took, you know, a couple, 3 years to get back.
You had to be creative in 2010.
Yes, sir.
You know, in 2000...
that's where townhomes started. It's in
they
2012.
They say that townhomes will start when property values get so high that it warrants.
Well, we did now I'll tell you a little thing about the history of townhomes. We purchased Stonebriar in 2006, and we were going to develop a duplex subdivision.
Where's Stonebriar?
Stonebriar's over there on Old Tasso Road.
Oh yeah, John Kinder. He was showing me that.
He was involved in that. I sold him that property. Okay?
And he was drawing it for Dugan.
Dugan and this other Cole, Tom Cole, is a friend of mine, still is, and he was involved in it. He was the one. He was in Hershey up there, and he was coming back, and I sold him a bunch of duplexes. That's what we wanted to do, is buy a piece of property to do that with. So we go out there and then get Kinder and Dugan involved, and then he drew it up, and we put in 4 quadruplex lots. Well, the first cul-de-sac there we'd go. It was in the old times where you could go pay for the lot, get the money, and not have to worry about appraisal and everything else. And so you could build it would about build a $350,000 lot. You could about get in there, just pay for the lot, and be in there 100% from there on.
Yeah.
Well, see, Dodd-Frank stopped all that, and then it slowed that whole process down. I sold Tricia Halls, remember her? Mm-hmm. She bought 4 lots in there and couldn't do what she wanted to do because of the Dodd-Frank Act. And then she saw that she could get the comps for the appraisals up to $440,000 because of townhomes that had sold for $110,000. Then she mini platted 1 lot. Then guess what happened? The townhomes began, and that's where they started.
Do you know Lake Kimsey did that years ago?
Did he?
Yeah, years ago.
Don't know.
Yeah.
Doesn't know that. But that's where they first started. And
now they're everywhere.
Everywhere. They make a lot of money.
I'm not particularly a big fan, but I've got a bunch.
Yeah, and I mean, they work. You know, I got some too.
It serves a purpose.
Yeah, there is. Well, it's still, you know, when you're looking at now, the way the prices have gone, this influx of people moving to Tennessee and Bradley County, you know, Bradley County's rated number 2 or 3 in the nation of best places to move to and buy a home and live. So people know it, they're coming, and we can't stop it.
We cannot stop
It's
it,
not
that's
going to
for
stop.
sure.
It's not going to stop.
The only thing that might stop it is sewer.
Sewer,
But we got a problem with
we
sewer,
got a
don't we?
problem, big problem with sewer.
I don't know how they can solve that one.
Well, they can.
That's
you
over
know,
my head.
I'm going to go off on a limb and tell you we have to use something more than gravity flow. You have to do different systems.
But still going into the sewer system?
Well,
I get
that, and you know, I'll tell you what's a big movement in the sewer is Ocoee Utilities, because now they are on a moratorium right now for 2 years, but they are on the move, and they will help Bradley County out because they're moving into Bradley County. Costs just as much as a septic tank to hook on to it, and then they charge like $35 a month for it.
You mean that like the forced
Right.
the forced line?
Right. They got lines and everything else, but you know, a lot of people everywhere else, they'll take a 5-acre tract or 2 or 3 acre tract, do a little sewer system for that subdivision,
Yeah.
and then use it. That's what they do when out west and everything else to water the greens of the golf course and everything, and then they develop houses around it using that system and using all that water from the sewer system to water the fairways.
It's like a community septic system, a community sewer system.
We need to do more of that. You know?
They're going to have to do something because I don't know what's going to happen.
Well, where are we going to put all these people? You know?
I don't know.
And you know, D.R. Horton's not the answer.
They're not the answer.
No.
They may be the anti-answer.
Now, I'll tell you what, I thank God for PUDs. You know, that's the only way we can regulate it.
Yeah. Let me ask you this. In 1990,
Yeah.
that was going back to that. They call that the years of the excess. That was when they wanted it bigger, bolder, brighter, wider. Everything had to be more. That's sort of over with now, isn't it?
But still, there's just the influx of people, and what we do have for a community and living and schools and beliefs, and but I mean, you moved to Cleveland, Tennessee, and your child is required to go to school, and if you don't, they put the parents in jail. There's not anything wrong with that.
No.
And people around the world like that. That's why they come. Now we've got to figure out a way to get them here and get them in a home that's affordable, because, you know, really, the home about 200 to 220 is a trailer, a double wide.
You know, I can't believe it, but, you know, and I was looking at the reappraisals where they all went up about half, but I was telling somebody the other day, they're not that far off.
They're not.
They're really not that far off.
Well,
I mean, you may not.
Some of them are, you know, they got some of them that are out of whack, but they always do when you stick them in a computer and spit out a bag.
Sure, some are out of whack.
But some of them are on the money.
I'd say by and large, they're off about 10% off,
Yeah.
by and large.
Yeah.
So, but that is what they're, you know, down on.
They doubled in the last 5 or 6 years.
They have doubled.
It's just, that's it.
If you don't believe it, you go try to buy one.
Yeah.
I bought 2 lots on Blythe Avenue for $25,000 apiece, and I believe I could have resold them the next day.
Well, they're worth 50.
Now, when would you have bought a house on Blythe Avenue for $25,000? 1980?
Yeah. 80? Yeah, pretty sure. Well, first house I sold on Buchanan Road was $49,900. First house I bought was $14,000.
Speaking of real estate, how you like these Cleveland Abstract cups?
I like them, man.
You use them a lot or some?
I do. I understand that Andy Brown's moved in there and is involved in.
I've heard that rumor.
That is correct.
So he's the
man.
The man.
The man. I don't want to speak out of turn, but I understand he's the owner too. You know, George is kind of, you know, and still in being a consultant. But you know, George, like me and you, we're just getting older, man.
Well, there's nobody better than George McCoy, is
Nobody
there? There ain't nobody better than George
better to
McCoy.
search your title than George McCoy.
Or be a friend.
Yeah.
He's a true friend,
Yeah.
too, isn't he?
Yeah, he's a good man.
Oh, he is.
Yeah. I've known him since high school.
Let's see.
He's probably a couple of years older than, he dated my sister. I know I don't think he dated her. I think he took her out once.
Yeah.
But now my sister that got killed in the car wreck was 2.5 years older than me. So he's 2-3 years older than me, probably. He's in his 70s.
I guess maybe 73, maybe.
Yeah, 73. So probably real close.
But, yeah, I use Tammy down there. She's perfect.
She's top shelf. Yeah, she knows a lot too.
Oh, she knows it, yeah.
Yeah.
That's Mayor Tom Rowland's wife's sister.
I didn't know that.
Did you know that?
No, I didn't. Tom Rowland.
Tom Rowland's wife's sister is Tammy Bentley.
Huh. Didn't know.
It's funny. I didn't know that either till a while back. But here's something interesting. They say that the building business is what gets the economy going and out of recessions. But I disagree. I think the real estate people are the ones that figure out how to make it work, whether it's a wraparound mortgage, whether it's owner financing, whether it's mortgage loans. They're the ones that have to figure that out, because the guy that's building, he's really not into that. He's not looking for buyers.
No, they got there are a lot of parts of the economy are around the building industry, but it doesn't matter what you do. You still got to list them, you got to sell them, and you got to put buyers in them to pay for the product.
And finance them.
And finance them and everything else, so that they go, because, you talk about, you got building a home, you got plumbers, electricians, you got all those people. And then, but as far as, you still got to get it done. And realtors are very, they're pretty smart folks.
Now, they go a long time sometimes without even making any money, right?
Well, I dare say with 750 realtors in Cleveland, Tennessee, and I think I'm pretty right there. They're with the prices and where they are, and the average price is around $350 or something like that. They can make a living by selling 2 or 3 houses, but not a very good one. But there's a lot of them, and the same old things. You know as well as I do. 90% of the business is done by 10% of the people.
Do they have a lot of advertising costs like they used to back in the day?
They do. So you can spend up to $10,000 and $15,000 a month on marketing and this and that. I don't, but there's several that do spend a lot of money.
Does it pay off, do you think, the advertising?
I don't necessarily agree. I think hard work and who you know and what you do and how you treat your people pay off.
Do you think it's because you got so many years of backlog of customers?
Absolutely.
If you didn't have them today, what would you do?
I probably wouldn't start the real estate business. It's a tough, people starting out brand new, they've got a tough road ahead, but if the people that think they can, well, I'm going to do this and sell a couple houses a month and then I'll be fine, well, they have to work very, very hard. And I'm not talking about 40 hours a week. I'm talking about 80.
And showing houses on Sundays.
Sunday, Monday, and
open houses.
Saturday, Sunday, holidays, when your kids are playing baseball. You can't be at the baseball field. You've got to be out hitting the pavement.
Answering emails now, and that realtor.com where you,
right, right,
probably have to, and somebody inquire on there and they email you,
You've got
I guess.
3 or 4 minutes within the answer an email. People want instant gratification nowadays, Dee, mm-hmm. And if you don't answer that email or that inquiry within minutes, you're going to lose it.
They may just want to know what color that is on that house.
Yeah, I know, but you've got to answer it quick. If you miss it.
You know what I've done for people, about 3 or 4 of them in the last month or so, they'll call and say, Dee, we're buying this house and we had an inspection on it, and we want you to look at the inspection and see what it would cost for these things. Well, A, I hadn't been in the house.
Right.
I'm not getting paid to do it. I'm just throwing some figures together. It's just a complete guess. and half of it on there is just something any man would do on a Saturday afternoon. It's not even something to even mention.
They pay you as a buyer. If you're a buyer, you pay an inspection company $500 to inspect the house. They're gonna find something wrong with it because that's their job.
And $500 would not pay you to look a house thoroughly. If you did everything on those inspection lists that you're supposed to, you'd need $1,500.
Yep.
I mean, because you can't check
Those
everything.
inspection companies are very, very profitable.
I wonder how many sales they kill.
Mm-hmm.
You know, because
Well, if they kill one, they get another inspection. You ever thought of that?
or reinspection.
Or
I
reinspection.
guess
Or
it just never ends.
It never ends. That's why it's very profitable.
What if they just keep going till people just because you can scare a customer by saying the door sticks.
Yeah. Well, here's the thing: that the buyer will do it a couple, 3 times, and then they'll be fed up with it, and then they'll see the house they want no matter what, and they'll have 4 buyers on top of it wanting to take it away from them, and they'll take it no matter what, and then they'll
rationalize
they'll
it.
rationalize it. You know, there's no perfect house. There's something wrong with all of them. You know, and if it's not structurally where it's fallen in, you know, there's wear and tear. I mean, that's what you get when you buy a used car. You know, you got
Especially a house that's been lived in 365 days a year. There's going to be something wrong with it.
I mean, yeah, the door's going to stick, and there might be some cracks and stuff. But you know, there's a structural crack, and then there's a crack. You know that.
Oh yeah.
You know,
Everything's got a crack if you
it
look
breathes.
close enough.
Homes breathe just like we do.
But back in those days, you sold a lot of vacant lots with trailers on them too. That's sort of been something that I've noticed is almost coming back. Have you noticed that a little bit?
Price point is what that is. That's why it's coming back.
You think price drives everything that much?
Absolutely. How much, hey, listen, it's how much down and how much a month. And if I can afford it, I'll take it. It doesn't matter if it's $300, it does matter the price because that's what the payment is, understand? But it's still like a car, like a house. How much, now how much is this gonna cost me to get in this? And then how much am I going to be obligated to pay per month to keep it? And if they can afford it and they like it, they buy it. And that's their major decision.
Do you don't think that people are getting a little even more cost conscious? I mean, how do they afford a $350,000 house?
The local man's in trouble. That's why the affordable housing, it's scary to say we are going toward affordable housing because the price point of the lots is what's scaring me. We're seeing lots go for, goodness gracious, nothing to see a decent lot, but it's only 1/3 of an acre or 25, less than that, 0.15 tenths of an acre sell for $65,000, $75,000, and it's happening now.
And I'm not sure where that lot even is.
There's
really not any of those.
And they're hard to find.
And if you developed a subdivision to create those lots, you'd have to have the land given to you. Because it costs to develop it.
Yeah. What is Tom Kate told me, and I'm right, you'll know this too, it's either $650,000 or $850,000 for a road with the utilities in it. Am I right there?
$650 to $800 a foot,
yeah.
linear foot.
Yeah.
Last time I figured one for somebody, for me, it was knocking on $400.
Yeah.
And that's probably been 2 years ago, so he's probably right.
Yeah, I think he said I believe it was 650 to 850, depends on.
And that depends on a lot
County,
of your
where it is.
your
This-
economies of scale and
And
stuff.
is it sewer, not, everything else.
And that's not even the land. That means if your lot was 100 foot wide,
Yeah, there's no 100-foot
that's
lot.
60. There's not anymore.
There's not, they won't develop 100-foot wide anymore.
I don't know how they're getting the drainage away from the neighbors in 6 feet.
I don't know.
That scares me a little bit.
Yeah,
But if you go out in the county and you say, I'm going to check this acreage out for a septic tank, they'll tell you to get a soil map, and you can't get those guys.
yeah. There's a couple of them, they're better, but same thing with, with surveyors. We've got a surveying problem around here too.
Boy, we do too.
I mean, because John Kinder, he went to heaven. Mitch didn't want to do it. And then everybody there goes to work for Richmond. Richmond, he's busy. And then where else do you go?
I called a company in Chattanooga 2 weeks ago, and they came out a week later. So
Yeah.
I don't know if it was a fluke or what. But I'm like you. I'd lean towards Tony every time.
Yeah. I mean, they'll get you. You just got to keep them.
I don't know if there's anybody and Tony Randy Brown. I hadn't seen him.
He quit. He retired. That's another one. See, he retired.
What's he doing now? Just staying out of his house?
I guess. He just retired because a bunch of the people that used Randy and lived by him and everything else gone to Richmond or gone to, I believe, McCracken. I don't know
Doyle
him.
McCracken?
I don't know Doyle, but I see his name a lot on some plats and surveys and
I
stuff.
wonder when they'll just have it done by survey, and they'll have somebody come out and it'll ring and they'll stick it. That's probably going to happen, isn't it?
Well, I would hope not, but it could.
Something's got to happen.
Yeah, I mean, we've got, if anybody's watching here that is thinking about doing something in their lifetime that would be very lucrative and very profitable, they need to go into surveying,
That would probably be the thing that would keep you busy from now on.
Yeah, for a long time.
I think Randy pretty much tends to his garden out there. He raises tomatoes and stuff like that.
Yeah, I guess he does. Good man, but he just wear him out,
What do you think is the way? I mean, let's go back to, at one time they would order their house from Sears catalog.
Yeah, better
it
homes and
together.
garden.
And then what's way out in the future? Because people have to have somewhere to live.
I'm gonna say, the scary thing about it is these smaller homes, 800-900 square feet, are gonna happen.
I've been saying that for a long time, and people would laugh at me, but I just believe that's what they're after. I'm not sure if they even want a big house.
Well, they're gonna have, the problem is we're back to the price point, Dee. The tiny homes or the little homes or anything are gonna be cheaper, and that's gonna be our affordable home.
But
you're just gonna get less.
But back in late 60s, those houses we were talking about, those 235 programs, they were 1,040 square feet.
Or 840,
840,
980.
980,
Yeah.
930, 908. Remember the
Yeah,
908?
Yeah.
And it had a washer and dryer, 3 bedrooms, and it had a little dining room area,
Right.
and some had the full basement.
And now they've got homes over there on in Parkstone. They've sold a home over there. It's got 780 square feet. Sold it for $275 a foot.
You know what I always thought was the best
But
layout?
it was $299. See, price point.
I believe that prices are coming down a little bit.
I hope so.
I really think they are.
I hope so.
But, I always thought the best layout of a house, I know people will think I'm crazy, but the old split level, that was a neat house. You had the living room, kitchen, you go up to the bedrooms, four steps.
One of the hardest plans to sell there is.
Wonder why that is. Because you got a half basement. It fits most of the terrain around here.
My experience has been, that's a tough plan,
I believe it's the stigma.
That Better Homes and Garden plan where you go in, you got the living room right here, and then you go back, you got the kitchen and the den connected, but you can make it a dining room. Then in the back, you got 3 bedrooms, 2 baths. Oh, I mean, it's built everywhere.
It's built there. I built 5 of them.
I know, but that plan's one of the best plans, and it'll survive everything. Because now they're going in there and tearing that wall down in the middle and opening it up, like 2020.
There are house plans. I remember that little ranch gazebo with the double car garage.
Yeah.
I bet I built 20 of them things. They would always sell good too.
Yeah.
That was back when everybody liked the country blue and stuff like the country red.
Craftsman. Yeah.
Hunter green.
Yeah. I had a greenhouse, a blue house too.
Wonder what? Well, I just can't imagine what's going to be next, but I don't think it's going to be the same. I just don't think it's going to be people don't have kids like they used to.
No, they don't. That's true. I mean, that like I'm talking. I mean, you're going to see more 2-bedroom homes than you did before, and they're going to be smaller. They're going to have to be smaller.
I don't see nothing wrong with a 2-bedroom house, do you?
No, I don't, because and your neighbors are going to be close. You're not going to have much space.
You don't think that I think that people might opt to build a smaller home and have bigger lots.
I think it's going to be the smaller home, but it's going to have common area in the neighborhood where the kids can play. I think that's where it'll go to.
Like a homeowners association?
Basically, you're going to have a little common ground.
That's a good idea.
And then have smaller homes, but then the area that they're used to, and you can still maybe go out and grill a hamburger out back, but then as far as throwing baseball and everything else, you're going to go over to the park and do it in the neighborhood.
What about the banking industry? That's always that's ever changing, isn't it? I remember like in the late 70s, interest was 18% or had hit 18%, and then in the 90s, you didn't go into a bank where they didn't give you a line of credit, unsecured.
90-day notes.
The 80s was 90-day notes.
90-day notes.
90-day notes.
Yeah.
And then in 90 days, you renewed it. We used to always, George again, we'd renew it 3 times and then put it on payments.
Yeah. I know.
Remember those days?
Oh, yeah.
It was fine, wasn't it? It worked out just fine.
That's just the way it was.
It's just the way it was.
Yeah.
It worked. It worked so easy.
Yeah.
And then in the 90s, they gave you unsecured lines of credits.
Yeah.
And then in 2009, they said, why don't you have any money? And then they started reappraising stuff and making you bring in the equity when you didn't even know they were doing it. And now these national banks are just calling and saying, hey, we decided we're not going to renew that.
That's exactly
because,
right.
Because
we don't like it.
Because of this reason. It's almost a made-up reason. Now, what's going to happen? You answer that.
I think a lot of that you're seeing on we're not renewing that loan, it has a lot to do with the credit card debt in the nation. Because the more people depend on credit cards and rampantly.
But even on an individual basis, if you don't owe much on credit cards,
No. I don't think it's you, or just say, for example, I'm just saying the whole portfolio of that bank, they see, you know how you do, you go in their bank and everything, first they one thing they want to do, what do they offer you? A credit card.
Credit card,
Okay.
2 of them.
2 of them. And then that debt gets up and it gets over the limit for the bank. And then at that point, they've got to do something else. Not just because of you, it's just because of them.
Maybe it's just that they call it in for whoever they can get it in on.
Yeah.
I almost think they're just trying to grab cash.
Right. And I think a lot of it has to do with credit card debt. I may be wrong, but that's what I'm seeing.
I was talking to Ted Moss last week, and he finally said, "Dee, quit talking about that. You're never going to be able to figure it out." I thought, well, he's right. You're not going to be able to figure it out why they do that. But I do know one thing. People have to have somewhere in our society. Now, if you go back to 1910 or way back when people could live that way, but in our society, you can't make it if you can't get a loan. And you can't pay 18%, 20% interest. So what's going to happen? Private lenders? Is that the answer? Just loan people $20,000?
Yeah.
I guess. Just cut everybody out but you and them.
Yeah.
They'll pay you.
Yeah, they will.
They're not going to not pay
Hey,
you.
I'm going to tell you what. If you don't think that I take advantage of private equity people, bet easiest place to borrow money there is.
I went to this bank one time. They had a meeting with the bankers were there. And they had the high dollar people and kind of the high depositors and the high borrowers. And I was sitting there thinking to myself, boy, they're going to be in trouble if we get together with them and cut them out. That's what you're saying, isn't it?
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Well, I mean, don't you think the American people that have gone off and done well in some things and everything else, and the bank looks at you and says, well, we'll give you 4%, and you turn around and you can give it to somebody that you've checked out just like the bank does, and they'll give you 6.5 for your money instead of 4.
And not a bunch of fees.
And not a bunch of fees. What do you think? Yeah. They're going to do it.
It's almost a no-brainer.
It is a no-brainer because, that'll happen.
That's what I'm thinking.
Mm-hmm.
I'm thinking that's going to happen. It's just like if I was to be in the building business and me and the builders all got together and said, hey, we're going to start doing this and doing that, and we're going to require this and that. They might just go out and start saying, hey, we'll just build our own house. I think you can build one house a year yourself, can't you, without being licensed, something like that?
Yeah, I think
They might just say, hey, I haven't used my one up yet.
Right. You'll see that.
But
see, hopefully that the people, the box builders are here in Cleveland, the state. D.R. Horton's not the only one. Lanier's here. And
Donaldson Smith, isn't there somebody like that coming?
the big guys.
Yeah.
I mean, these guys that bring their framing in on a rail car. Only thing they buy here in Cleveland, Tennessee is concrete. That's it. Take all their money away, everything else. That's not good for us. Now how long can we do that? Because it hurts the good local builder where you get a pretty good home that's going to be sitting there in 50 years. They won't.
I don't know the answer to that, but I know that I feel like somebody ought to be watching a little bit.
I've seen your product. You build a good house.
I'm still doing it.
And you're still doing it. How much time you got to build some more? I mean, right now.
I don't even want it. I don't even really want it.
Because you've got so much you can do because of your reputation and everything else, and you do a fine job at it.
Somebody's going to call me, no matter what.
Say, hey, I need you to build me a house.
But they're not looking for a deal usually.
No,
they just want
they want a good quality product.
They just don't want no hassles.
Yeah, I mean, if I'm going to live in something, I want to know that in 5 years it's going to still be there.
Remember Jim Eldridge?
Oh yeah,
Eldridge Acres. Remember he developed Eldridge Acres.
I got two lots in Eldridge Acres right now.
Oh, where are they at?
On the backside,
West Eldridge or East Eldridge?
Well, that'd be West Eldridge.
I grew up in West Eldridge.
Did you?
I lived on Norman Chapel, then I moved over on Georgia Circle.
Yeah.
So you've got two lots in the back. Are they next to the interstate?
No, they're back this way. You can barely hear it, but it's near it.
I don't mind the interstate.
No, you get used to it. It's kind of like a train.
Yeah.
You know.
How did you get two vacant lots?
Well, that's a long.
Are they on the left side, back on the left by the White House?
Mouse Creek's back over here on the left. Yeah, but bought a house, me and my son, we fixed it up. His contracting days didn't last long. I wanted to start building and everything else, and it just didn't work. And I ended up with him as far as the thing was. I ended up with him because there was a house and 2 lots, and I bought that whole thing to do, fix the house up and then build 2. And I still got him, you know.
Well, you can sell them, can't you?
I can, but people say, well, I said, well, you know, I just don't want to pay taxes on it right now. I'm fine. I'll mow them, you know.
That's a good neighborhood,
It
West
is.
Eldridge Acres.
Yeah, they're all. That's, you know, all the bad homes in there will eventually be real nice homes because the location is too good, and you know as well as I do. Location, location, location is everything.
And those bad houses were bad when I lived there.
Yeah.
It's just, that was just the way they are. Just
Yeah.
That,
Now there'll be somebody come in and buy it and fix it up, and it'll be nice because the location's too good.
Do you think that Bradley County, they're going to keep moving down Georgetown or North Lee Highway or Chatham Valley Road? Which way would you say?
I'd say all of those because you can get sewer to it, you know, if you can get the sewer to it. But, you know, that again, and then you have Ocoee Utilities, so you're going to see development off 64 and around in there. And then
Because they got water or sewer?
Sewer.
Are they treating it themselves?
they've got a plant. Yeah, they've got a sewer plant. They're just like we do.
Oh,
You know?
Lord, that's
Yeah.
a big deal.
I'm telling you, it is. So then the best kept secret and everything else is if you can figure out a way to get sewer on Spring Place Road, prettiest country in the world.
Indians loved it.
I mean, yeah.
That's where they stay.
But I mean, if you can get sewer somehow down that way, you got there's your growth too.
That would be it. Headed towards Dalton. I know it's the.
Yeah, kinda. You
Yeah.
know, and then all back in there, exit 20 is still not even alive yet, but it will be. You know, don't worry about it. It'll happen.
So Ocoee Utilities, I didn't realize they were treating their own sewer.
Oh, yeah.
So they're just doing it with that grinder pump and high pressure lines, just like Anatole does. I believe Anatole's
Yes.
got one of them.
Yeah, exactly.
So they work fine.
Yeah.
The little light goes off when it needs service, and
Yeah.
that's it.
Yeah, now some of them they're actually pumping it, gravity flowing it to their sewer plants.
Where is their sewer plant?
Oh God, you're gonna ask me that. Now there is one I'm on the planning commission county, and we were approving a big subdivision. It's around Chatham Valley Golf Course. Around in there, I can't tell you exactly.
Oh, behind it maybe?
Somewhere around
Used to
in
be
there.
owned by Don Hughes maybe?
They bought some land there, and they are putting a new sewer plant there. And they have another one. So but this is going to bring up more capacity for them too. They're a good answer for Bradley County.
Who's in charge of that?
I don't know.
Remember Bruce Renner, wasn't he on the board at that when they were just a water company back
Probably
in the day?
was, yeah.
They were just starting water or something.
Now there's a mess right there.
That was a mess.
He was a mess.
He'd help you if he could, wouldn't he?
Hey, good man. I'm one of my good friends. You know.
He'd help you if he could.
Yeah. A lot of stories about old Bruce.
Yeah.
He was a mess.
This, you feel like you're gonna, you ever just think, I mean, some houses you've probably sold the same house 4 and 5 times.
Absolutely.
I mean, the same house.
The same house. I went, and this is the funniest thing you've ever heard right here. I was, a client of mine called me and they said there's a new home that came on the market in Edgewood. It was a ranch on Blueberry Hill Road in place. And I turned around to him and I said, I used to live there. And I did when I was 18, 20 years old. My mother built it and I lived there. Of course, it turned over a couple of times like that. You can't believe how many, now I actually sell houses I've lived in because I moved 19 times.
Have you ever gone through periods when the economy got so bad you just couldn't sell nothing?
Yeah, when I first started.
Was that the worst?
That was the worst. That was the worst.
Were you within minutes of changing careers?
No, because I didn't know what making any money was, and because I just started out, made my first year in real estate, made $14,000.
That was probably pretty good.
It was
that
pretty
year.
good back then. It was enough to survive. My wife worked at O, and she made more than I did.
Did you have did they have the contracts that were in triplicate? You had to put the carbon underneath it?
Yeah, you had, and then the old saying was press hard, cheap carbon. but we put the house information and the whole listing agreement on a legal sheet with 3 carbon copies. And we filled it all out.
But you had to put you literally had to put the carbon in there.
Yeah.
Twice.
Yeah.
One for them, the file,
Yeah.
and you.
Yeah. But it was 1 page. Do you know how many pages you have for a purchase and sale agreement now?
I would have
40.
And nobody's going to read all that.
And it says the same thing 10 times. They have a meeting and they want to be paperless, they have a meeting and develop another form. And it says the same thing the other one says 3 times on it.
Do you think that it's gotten rid of a lot of problems, or do you think that it's about
If
the
somebody's
same?
going to sue you, it don't matter how many sheets of paper you sign, they're going to sue you.
And it really doesn't matter who's right or wrong, it's who's got the better
Right.
representation.
Yeah.
But why go through all that stuff?
Well, because that's how the attorneys make their living.
Well, but you're in the Association of Realtors, right?
Correct.
But can you be just a real estate agent licensed by the state of Tennessee and not be a member of the Board of Realtors?
If I had, which I'm a broker,
Uh-huh.
if I started my own real estate agency and decided not to join the National Association of Realtors or the Tennessee or the River Counties or Chattanooga or anything else, yes, you could. But you've got to have action, and I think that what's currently going on and everything, you're probably going to see more of that because they're just going to be, what happened with the NAR and all this changes and everything that recently happened, and nobody understands what's going on, and half the agents don't either. Because we used to be able to figure out, we're in this business to make a living, and you need to know how much you can make. And they took that completely away from us through the MLS changes and everything in November. So now we have to call and ask, and if you don't tell me you're offering compensation co-op, then you gotta put it in the contract and negotiate it and everything else. So my question is, when and where are they gonna help us?
Yeah, what's the point?
What's the point?
There's got to be a point.
There has to be a reason. There has to be a reason for these people to be there and to be helping us and us to pay the dues to them.
I remember Jimmy Ray never was a member of that,
No,
was he? He was just
didn't care, no problem. He didn't
have any
and then
problems.
We'd say, now, we obey a strict code of ethics, and if you have the realtor sign, you know you're dealing with a true professional.
Yeah.
And there was who was it? It wasn't. It was another one that didn't join, and he didn't care. You could tell by the way he did business, it wouldn't make no sense. It just anything went.
Who was it?
I forgot who it was. You'd know him.
It might have been that guy I was trying to think of his name a minute ago. He was back in that era. Was he in that era?
Yeah, back in when I was first started.
Yeah, that's
back in the 70s, early 80s.
Yeah. maybe they were smarter than the rest. Of course, I think the Association of Realtors probably helped a lot of things
Yeah, they've been
for years.
they've been good. I don't think the last decision they made was very good, but and all it was somebody said that, well, I work for free, and they didn't, and they lied, and then they're class action lawsuits, and they're not stopping either. They're going to continue, because we do co-op, and my normal transaction is I offer compensation to the person that sells the house, because if I listed your house tomorrow, I'd want it in a bid war, because you'll get more money for that house if I've got more people bidding on it.
Obviously.
So I need to be in the MLS, and I need to be out. I need to have my home looked at by, in the region here, 25 realtors. And that's what it takes.
That's just more exposure. And in order to do that, you have to offer compensation. Why wouldn't they offer compensation?
There is, and some places are not quite like that, but I do. I think it's the best way to do business.
Looking at these pictures, Gwen, can you get this? What date was this? Or about what date was it?
That was, I'm going to tell you. That was in the 80s.
Was that early?
Yeah.
So you got Betty Lewis.
Yeah.
Was that Ed's wife?
Yes.
That's right. I remember that now.
She's in heaven now.
C.L. Sloan. Now, what relation that is to the?
He married my mother.
So he's Preacher Sloan.
That's Preacher.
He was friends with my grandfather, Roy Ormby.
I'm sure. Yeah.
They sold cars for Bob Card.
Yeah. And then when my mother got married, he went in the real estate business.
They said
he never did like it.
But they were. He was real good friends with Roy.
I'm sure he was.
And then you got Linda Smith, Stony Brooks. Boy, that's a young Stony Brooks.
Yeah.
I saw him at the Old Fort the other day. Then there's Max Phillips, you know him.
Yeah.
Linda Crittenden, Ron Murphy. How's he doing?
He died.
How long ago?
I think he died last year.
He moved way out
He went to Florida.
Before that, he went out in the country and built a little cabin or something, didn't he?
Moved to the river.
Moved to the river, yeah. And then Pat Fuller, she's still around.
Yeah.
J.B. Crittenden, I remember J.B.
He's still alive.
Yeah, he doesn't have his pipe in right here.
No.
Glenda Allred, June, I can't remember. Bookright.
Boot night.
Boot night.
Yeah.
Ron Baker, Kay Holden, I know her, Ned Belt, and Gene Collins. So that was about that. According to the ties, that was in '82, something like that. '83.
I'm sure. Yeah. Yeah. Long time ago.
It doesn't seem like that long ago, does it?
Oh, I didn't think.
What's this here?
That's it. Here. Let me.
Carroll and Green. Oh, boy,
see,
that's something.
You remember Max Carroll?
Oh, do I?
Well, see, David found this after Max died. This was Max wrote this letter. The Cleveland Board of Realtors had its own beginning in '61, and that year it was I was 30 years old. My son David was 1 year old, and Max Phillips was 6. Okay, first meeting upstairs, Old City View, talked about somebody's conflict and this and that, and then I'll talked about the charter members were the Big Bob Goins, Opal Boykin, Sammy Jean Phillips, Bob Gentry, and myself were charter members of the Cleveland Association of Realtors.
That was the first association, 61.
Charter was signed in 1961. First officers, Bob Gentry president, Sammy Jean and I were secretary and treasurer. I don't remember which one was secretary, which one was treasurer. The second one was Max Carroll, and the third president was Sammy Jean Phillips. And then there was early members, Carl Hoskins, remember Carl?
Carl, yeah.
And then
Eddie Botts' buddy.
Dick Sharp, Van Hamilton, Vaughn Hamilton, Willis and Sarah.
Vaughn Hamilton, yeah.
Willis and Sarah Park. Now, they're both Nayland Jackson, Newt Metzger, remember Newt, Luther England.
That's who I was trying to think of, Newt Metzger.
Newt Metzger, okay. And then Luther England and Max Finkel.
Max Finkel, his son.
He was a car boy. He was
a car boy, and his son owns Grove Avenue Plaza.
That's it.
That's it.
Max Finkel. Now, Max died too.
Oh, has he?
Yeah. And then Bill Bender was also one of the first members.
Max Finkel, I never thought of that.
And then Bill Bender Realty. And then talk about three people. Sammy Jean, in my honest opinion, was one of the best sales agents ever to hit the streets of Cleveland. She was aggressive, well-informed, and hardworking. Call her, knew how to deal. Sold houses in the areas of Burlington Heights. She sold house in the area of Burlington Heights, Davis Heights, and Hope Acres. Her husband, Guy, was a builder, and she was she had ready clientele. And he built, and we sold. They sold them. And then she still lived married to Preacher Sloan. They moved to New Smyrna Beach. Carl Hoskin, he talked about him. He sold furniture. Then see, who was it now? He was a land developer, builder in hundreds of government apartments. That was Hoskins.
Hoskins.
Started Telecable. And then Nayland Jackson came to Cleveland, purchased Bradley Block, sold out, and became a realtor. And
Then the county executive, didn't he?
Yeah, and I think it was, yeah. And then it said Nayland saw lights at the courthouse. He was elected and became county judge.
County judge, that was it.
Manager of the Chamber of Commerce, and that's pretty
He
good.
had one arm.
Yeah, he did. Yeah, and that's some pretty good history right there in that.
That is, and Carl Collins finally dethroned him.
Yeah.
I don't know, Max. I built my whole life, and you've been a realtor your whole life. I had a real estate license for a while, but I never just
Everybody else had. Everybody's been.
I was mainly just. Well, I got that before I got my contractor's license, I think. But real estate business is one of the best businesses there is. But I don't know how. There's so many complications in closing one anymore.
Yeah.
I mean, it's different than it used to be.
I used to do we used to do our own closings. Me, didn't have a title company. Reagan came along and then implemented. Then when the title companies came along where they had closings there. And
so prior to that, I remember Bruce used to close them.
Yeah.
When I had a license.
Cash deal, I'd close them and then go down to Joe Good's office, get the deed prepared and everything else, take the deed in there and have a notary in the office, sign the deed, do the deal.
I remember John Paul telling me that he was there with Bruce and let's see, I may have this story, but the buyer and his wife and the seller and his wife, and John Paul said that wife got mad at the husband and took her shoe off, and it was one of these high heels and just hit him right in the face with her high heel. He said he didn't have any more closings after that.
I had one where the husband was on one end of the office and the wife was on the other end, and I'd run back and forth and run down the hallway, and then finally we'd come to agreement and sign it and get it over with. It was hilarious.
So before that, something Reagan did, it caused it to be a title company is so important.
They make very good money.
But most of it's on what?
Title insurance,
but
closings.
But closings are what, $500?
Title searches. Yeah. Well, they still make, their fees and everything are 1%, about 1 to 1.5% of the purchase price, usually.
By the time but is that recording fee at recording at the courthouse?
No, I'm talking about what title company.
But I would be afraid to buy anything without a title company closing.
Nowadays,
I wouldn't.
I wouldn't buy nothing without title insurance. Nothing.
I'm wondering now if they almost just give you title. That's why I like George and them. I know George searches and knows and all that other stuff, but if you didn't, man, you could have you could have an easement coming across your property. You could have.
And George will find it too.
George will find it.
Yeah.
I remember used to, every time you bought anything, you had to have a survey. Remember that?
Oh, yeah.
You just didn't buy it without a survey.
That's right.
Now they're starting to sell stuff without them because you just can't get a surveyor.
Well, and then that kind of started before that, but now what they do is they signed a disclosure. The title company signs a disclosure saying we did not order a survey. We did not require a survey in this title opinion. So therefore, if something's wrong with the survey or the lot lines and everything else, you are responsible for getting your own survey and deciding that. They divorce themselves from any kind of.
Boy, that could be scary, couldn't it? Of course, I always get a survey.
Well, now if it's been there forever and lot recorded plat.
That's.
But now, with a piece of land that's not been recorded or surveyed and recorded or has some kind of meet and bound survey, no, I'm not going to get it without a survey.
I got a lot over on Dixie Drive on 64 Highway. You know that.
Oh, I know.
And the lots are all like this.
Yeah.
So every house is sitting square with the road, but crooked with the lot line.
Yeah.
And so, man, you don't know what you've got.
No, that's true.
You just sort of, everybody agrees on it.
Yeah, that's scary too.
Remember when they all had about the lead-based paint? That came out for a while. That sort of went by the wayside.
Well, it's still a requirement, but now the whole thing developed from these places up where had big apartment complexes, and the kids were eating the lead-based paint off the windowsills because it tastes sweet. Mm-hmm. And so that's where the lead-based paint, all that, some government official said, well, we need to enforce that.
Start a rule on
we
that.
need to have another form for that. It was built prior to 1978. And then they quit taking the lead out of the paint. So now you got that. So then you got to get your house painted more.
About every 4 years
About every 4 years now.
Boy, that lead-based paint, though, it would stay on there, wouldn't it?
Yeah, it would.
I don't know how they got it off the windowsills.
I don't either. But it'd chip off and the kids would eat it. Those Section 8 apartments and stuff like that.
Yeah. How about, do you think that maybe mobile homes will come back with a different name, like modular homes or boxable homes?
Well, tiny homes has got a plant here. The tiny homes plant, they've actually got a plant that is doing, and they're looking for places to build a tiny home subdivision. I think you're going to see a lot of something like that.
Something's got to happen because they're not going to spend $400,000. You could about rent a motel. How long could you rent a motel room for $400,000?
A long time.
I mean, a long time.
Yeah. But these houses that are 780 square feet, nice. Now, they're nice. Mm-hmm. $300,000. But they're nice. But they're just 1-2 bedrooms. That's it. Nice kitchen, nice bathroom. But then
no garage, no carport.
Carport maybe.
You really don't need a place with a garage. You don't have to keep your cars in the garage like you used to because the paint's not going to rust like it used to.
Yeah, I know, but now back when we talk about when the interest rate was 3%, 2.5%, and 3.5%, 4%, it doesn't matter if you had a garage or not. But now that the interest rates, well, it was 6.5 a week ago, 6.6 a week ago. Now, last week it went up again about 7.1. They're demanding. You're seeing more demand for somewhere to put your car. you know.
Now, you're talking about the 30-year mortgages? Or is that what
yeah.
Well, is that what it's called exactly? 30, what are they called?
30-year conventional. Yeah, 30-year conventional mortgage was, 2 weeks ago, was around 6.5 to 6.6% for 30 years, for a 30-year mortgage. FHA is always cheaper than that, but they have the MIP that is a monthly payment that makes it higher anyway because of that. Lower down payment unless your FICO score, your credit score can be lower. And so that brings a lot more people into the play. But conventional 720, 740.
What is conventional required down now? Or
you can get one for 3% down on conventional. If you've
are
got a good credit,
are the requirements?
Your credit rating has to be pretty high.
But what about your income level?
It has to. You have to qualify.
What do they use?
I mean, me myself, I use like they have a different way, and you'd have to have a mortgage lender to come in here and tell you exactly the way they calculate it. I don't know enough about it to talk about, but I've always used, if you use 25% of 28% of your income is 28% of your income is the house payment, you're probably in good shape. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, that's what Jim Elmore used to say, 25%.
Yeah, I know.
25%.
Well, I use 28,
yeah.
same thing.
Well, that's probably 4.3 weeks a month, something like that.
That's my old school way I taught, and that's kind of what I do too. But they do it a lot different now. But those rates were 2 weeks ago were down, and now they went up a little bit from last year. But they're volatile, and it's based on the 10-year Treasury. Who knows?
How when they're based on the 10-year Treasury, how different? What would the 10-year Treasury be if the 30-year rates were? Is it like one more point or one less or something like that?
No, I don't. That's out of my league there. But I don't know what it's based on.
But the person would be crazy not to get a new house at 7.1% interest for 30 years.
No, there's not bad. Hey, when I first started, it was 9%. And it was 9%, and it went up to 18, then it came back down to 10, and it stayed 10 to 9 forever. Then when I went to Crye-Like 25 years ago, it was 6.5, and now everybody thinks, man, 6.5 is high. It's not the interest rate, it is what you're used to. If it'll stay at 6.5 or 7% for a couple of years, then that's what it is. But if it does this,
John Paul used to say under 10% you can make it.
It's fine. It's fine. It's fine.
But
the only problem we have, the differential in the interest rate now is, used to your average price was $200,000. Now it's $350,000.
What are these people doing that have all these apartments that bought them at 4% interest? And they getting all this, they got, $1,100 a month for it, and now we're getting this influx of 5,000 homes in here, and all these people are going to go buy those homes. Now they're going to be renting these apartments. Their loans coming to you, it's on a 5-year or 7-year balloon. That's hitting about now, and the interest is 7.5, 7.25. What are they going to do?
They're going to pay it, or they're going to move. Or they're going to do something else.
What's the else?
I don't know, but they're going.
Well, the realtors will have to figure it out.
Yeah.
Again.
Again.
Right.
That's right.
I mean, that's the truth.
It is.
The realtor will have to, because the realtor.
See, back when the whole Dodd-Frank thing started, guess what happened? Townhomes were developed.
That's right.
And then look now, there's townhomes. There's another whole classification of single-family residential homes is a townhome. You've just got a wall for a lot line, and they're building them.
Yeah, you just got a wall for a lot line. That's all.
That's it. That's the only difference, and then everything else is the same.
If I was a younger guy, I would go out in the county, Glenn Ramsey. Remember Glenn Ramsey?
Oh.
He was one of my best friends.
Oh, a good man.
Smart.
Yeah.
They all used to say he was dumb as a fox. He always did what everybody else wasn't doing. You know, he built the first motel here and sold it, built the plaza on 25th Street. I remember I was at the Old Fort one morning. I was at the Liars table.
Yeah.
He was probably I'd probably skip school to go over there and eat with those old guys. But
Yeah.
they said, boys, this is when Glenn's met his Waterloo, they said. I guess he's done it too far. That was the 25th Street Plaza over there. That's been there, had somebody in it ever since that day. I guess Johnny Brewer still owns it.
He does.
But Glenn would always go. He used to say, Dee, go 5 miles out and let the progress come to you instead of going where the progress is.
Well, that's what Cletus Benton and Ben Moore did on all they
5 miles out.
They went to every intersection to where there was a place where you could have an exit and bought the property when it was dirt cheap. Now of course Cletus, we know what happened to him, but the Moores now they've got all that property on all
They
that.
said that when Ben bought that property on North Lee Highway, that Ben, I think it was Ben or somebody said his daddy said he had finally lost his mind because it was so far out in the county, and that's where the hospital came.
That's right.
But 5 miles out, maybe that's significant.
It is significant. Because Tennessee, the way the Tennessee, I mean, you should be proud to be a Tennessean because we are the best balanced budget in the nation.
Thanks to Governor Lee or just our
Well,
luck?
just the whole policies of Tennessee that's in their bylaws and everything. We have to balance the budget. We can't go out and build a road and borrow the money. We got to pay as you go. That's where we are.
Mm-hmm.
That's why we're healthy. That's why the people are moving here and everything else. Let's just make sure they vote that way,
Yeah.
And things to come. But, it's a proud, I'm proud. I used to travel and go to all these real estate people that were up north, out in California, and I used to sit there and they used to tell me tales about waiting lists and bidding wars and everything else, and I'm going, man, I scared to list one for less than 6 months because I knew it wouldn't, I'd hoped to have it sold for 6 months.
Yeah, right.
And not have to, and have, just tough to sell them. Mm-hmm. And now we're there. We're there. All those things they told me back in, this was in the 90s and the 80s. See, I met Harold Crye in 86, okay? Harold Crye-Like, still a good friend. And I met him through relocation. And that was Bowaters, Olin, Mars, all these places here. That has all changed. But, they were, and I met all those big guys that came in and were a member of Home Equity and this and that. And they'd say these stories about all the great things that were happening. Well, we don't do this. We don't show houses anymore. We just open the door and let them go in. And now you come to Tennessee and you'll sit there and you'll list a really good one and everything else. And they'll call you and say, I want to make an offer sight unseen and buy it. Cash, no inspection, nothing.
We've waived our inspection rights.
We've waived our inspection rights because we want the house, don't matter. I went through a house the other day, sold it. We were there, 5 people were standing out in the driveway looking at it. And we came out, we went through it in 5 minutes. They said, we don't want no inspection. We don't want anything. We want to bid $2,500 over list price.
Golly. So that's still going, things are still booming.
It depends on price point there. Because anything over.
What price was that?
That was $320.
$320, $350 is still the sweet spot.
That's a sweet spot. But now, when you get over 400, And now 500 is a real kicker.
Now let's do the
Used to a 500. Used to I don't want to interrupt you, but now used to somebody would say, "Well, I want $1 million for my house." I said, "Do you know how many homes sell for $1 million here in Brandon County?" They said, "No," and I said, "Maybe one every 2 years." And now it's rampant. Nothing. There's nothing to think you can get $1 million for your house.
You know, I've got this thing that I've got on my computer. I have people all the time call me say, "Hey, you want to buy this?" Or, you know, I get a lot of that. But you remember Jim Elmore, James D. Elmore?
Yeah. Yeah.
He was a great guy, brutal businessman,
Yeah,
man,
yeah.
brutal.
Yeah.
And he gave me this formula to know how to buy stuff. And so later on, when computers came about, I put it in my computer program.
I
Did a
want
little
that.
algorithm.
I
mean,
want
it's neat. And so what it does is and I just created it myself, and I'm no genius, but the first step is it'll hyperlink you to 2 demographic sites that tells you the median income, and then it averages those 2. It divides it by 4.3 because it gives you 25% income like yours going to your 28.
Right.
And it takes that and it'll take the current, it'll take the 8% interest rate, put it on a 30-year mortgage, and whatever that pays out is what you can give. You can't give any more. No, well, no. That's what you can give.
Yeah.
Now you can work for a better deal, but
Right.
that's what you can give.
Right.
And
So that done you well?
it doesn't work today, but it works. And if it's not working today, it means it doesn't work because you can't. He said no matter what, people will not spend more than 25% of their income on their housing. And he said,
Smart people won't.
Yeah, and he always made me average it at 8%. And I said, why, Jim? Interest was set. He said, because in 20 years, you're going to average 8%.
He's right. He
He said,
real
sometimes
close to
it's
right.
over, some days it's not.
And that's probably pretty close.
He says, you're going to average 8. He said,
Yeah.
and so, anyway, I've stuck to that, and you can't buy nothing now, but you can here in a few years or a few years back. You can't be an investor and just keep forcing it because you're an investor. And I had somebody the other day said, oh, you can't buy anything at that. I said, yeah, that's the trick. If you could just go out and buy it and invest it, there's no skill in that. You have to know, you have to find it. So that's the skill. The skill isn't saying I'll take it.
Right. The skill's finding it.
The skill is finding it.
Yeah.
And it's
That's
not
true.
easy.
No,
but
it's not.
You know.
But I mean, it's all in all, good is and all the time, real estate's a good, sound investment if you're not stupid.
There's probably nothing better.
Nothing better.
Nothing better.
I can't say that I would do anything. Now there have been times in my life that I'd say, boy, I don't know if I've been in the right business or not. But all in all, after my 46 years, I wouldn't change a thing about what I've done.
You know, I don't know many that have just been in it like you. Maybe Jim Workman,
He's out.
but he didn't do anything else.
No.
Well,
he was in the Army.
He was in the Army. He started a little later than
And
you
then he
did.
worked I'll tell you a story about Jim Workman. He'll laugh about this, and I don't know if he watches this or not. But
He does. I've had his son on there.
yeah, Brian. But
Brian.
anyway, Jim, I mean, he was a great competitor and done well with himself and everything else. But he worked at Miller's clothes store, I believe, and went up to his Alan. I forgot. Alan was the manager, and he said, "Hey, I'm getting in the real estate business, And then he was telling me he went to. I met the guy that was in the clothing store, And he said, and he was in the clothes store business. I can't remember who it was, but he went up to him, and he was just like me when I asked Lawrence Lakin to lend me money for my wedding band for my wife. I said, I don't have no money. I just pay you $100 a month. Okay. But he needed a lot of nice suits. Back then, he had to dress up in ties and everything. So I needed a lot of nice suits to get in the real estate industry. And I don't have a lot of money to pay you, but he said, I'll pay you and everything else. And he said, and he paid him every dime back. And he started hitting, and look at him now.
And they said it didn't take him long.
No, he's a good, hard worker, good man. I mean, you can't say anything about it, you know.
Who would you say that you looked up to as far as the old time realtors that could make it today? You know, some of them you say, boy, they were good in that time, but they couldn't make it today. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
But was there any of them that you could say, oh, they'd make it today just fine? See, John Paul would have a problem with all that paperwork.
Yeah,
he wouldn't do it.
Yeah, they make it today.
Bill Harris, maybe? Remember Bill Harris?
I remember Bill. He was old school, though.
He was old school.
Old school. You couldn't tell him nothing.
It was just Democrats and Tennessee football.
I know it, but you know, it's today's market is.
Bruce would make it.
Bruce would make it. But Bruce was a good old investor. Lucky.
He'd always say, I got a buyer for that.
And I mean, you know, he could tell you a lot of stories about what he's done, but you know, a lot of, hey, you know as well as I do, a lot of this business is luck. You know, you got to be there at the right time.
Right. And Bruce was always somewhere. He wasn't home watching TV, was he?
Hey, listen, he was up at 6 o'clock, and he worked his hiney off all the way till about 8, and then he went to bed.
And then he'd always go out to eat at night, and he'd be looking for a buyer there.
I know it. He'd be talking to people and everything else, building relationships. Mm-hmm.
Who was one of the old heads, though? The early 80s.
See, early 80s, that probably would make it today.
Yeah.
That's simple. Bill Bender.
Bill Bender.
I'd say.
See, my grandfather built his building too.
Yeah.
Where Jim is.
Yeah. Yeah, I'd say that'd make it, you know. Now, he's an old school, but tough worker, real tough, good negotiator, and not scared to do anything but work. And see, nowadays, and I still do work more than I should. You know, 40 hours is not the real estate industry. 60 is. You know, and you got to give it your all and everything else, but you got to be smart at it. But if you don't want to work and you don't want to pay the price and everything else, you are not going to make it. It's not about going around and telling everybody how great you are. It's about how many people you asked. You know?
Do you do a lot of work on Saturdays still?
I still do work on Saturdays. I do hopefully play some golf and everything else, but I still go to the office a couple hours, you know, do paperwork.
I think as you get older, you start to schedule better too, a
Yeah,
little more.
You
learn how to say, well, I can't meet you today, but I can meet you in the morning, something like that.
You know, and I mean, a lot of times, you know, sometimes I just go, you know, I've really got an appointment, and I may or may not.
Yeah.
But I've got an appointment, but I can meet you here instead of just, you know, there's been a lot of times in my life that I've left my wife and my children behind and gone after that deal, you know. But it's been worth it. I can't say that it wasn't.
Well, at least you're not working at a factory third shift.
No, I know, and then, you know, I'm not ever going to.
Are you going to keep going like you're going? Or are you going to retire, or are you still in the game? How's that work?
Do you have any idea how many people ask me that? How long are you going to do this? When are you going to retire? What are you going to do with your book of business? What are you going to do? And right now, to tell anybody and everything, I don't know. I do know that I'm very satisfied with where I am, and I'm very satisfied with the way I'm doing my business. But am I going to be as hard at it now as I have been at 35? No, but I have built some great relationships, and I thank the Lord Jesus Christ that I can do what I can do, and I can still do it pretty well.
Well, I know one thing. You seem busier now than you did 10 years ago.
I am very busy, but it's just I owned a real estate company, and I'm glad I don't. You know, I don't ever want to own one again. But don't get me wrong, if I was Harold Crye and had 4,000, 5,000 agents, it might be a different story.
Well, that was a different era.
Yeah.
You didn't do that then.
Yeah.
Remember, it was tribal then, more tribal.
Yeah, but now I just, you know, I got out of that particular part of my career and then started selling. I love it. I like doing the deal. I don't like managing people. I like to manage myself, and managing me is hard enough. And but now managing 5 or 10 and having a team or anything else, I'm not a team guy. What you see is what you get. I do it all.
You're just a salesman, and you put the deal together.
That's it. That's all. And I love the deal more than anything there is. I love putting a commercial deal together, and I love putting a nice for my clientele, my sphere of influence that I've done, selling a house or selling theirs, and I sold them 20 years ago. You know, your mother sold me a house. I want you to sell mine. Boy, then that, you know,
Man,
that makes
you'd almost do it free after they say that, wouldn't you?
When they say that, I say, well, I'll be right over now. Even if it's Saturday morning and I miss my tea time, I'll be there. You know.
Well, you've been in it a long time and to made a living at it. And I don't have it. I've never heard anybody say anything negative about Max Phillips. I just, you know, it's quite a legacy, just to be honest with you.
Yeah.
I mean, think about it.
You got to be honest. Hey, when I lay my head down at night, I know one thing: I never lied to you, because I ain't lying to you, because it's not worth it. Now, there's been a lot of people say, well, I don't like him, but it's because I told them the truth and they didn't really like him.
Max, it's people like you that make America great.
Yeah.
Let's give cheers to Sammy Gene Phillips.
Sammy Gene Phillips.
And J.P. Douglas.
J.P. Douglas. All right, let's do it. We're out.